What a great kick.
And Chad Townsend plays on. Plays to the whistle. Kicks away for Valentine Holmes. Cronulla's in again.
Wow.
Chad Townsend.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Talk of the Town podcast, episode 10 for 2020. We're trying to churn through these episodes while we've been in lockdown. The season is fast approaching, May 28. We're back, but I'm lucky enough today to have senior social media content, whatever it is, the title, he'll fix it up. But at the NRL, Reece Carter, mate, thank you for coming on the podcast today. Did I get that right? What is it? What is the title?
Mate, close enough. Senior social media producer, I think. I can't remember. Producer of content, I don't know.
Mate, beautiful,
Thank
mate.
you.
Like I said, I really do appreciate your time today. Thanks for coming on. And the aim of today's podcast is basically to give people out there an idea who are wanting to, I guess, grow their following, put some content out there on social media that they think might work on various different platforms. Reece has a very keen eye and is up to date with everything going on social media across a lot of the platforms. But mate, I guess firstly, how has lockdown been for yourself?
Lockdown's been interesting. As probably a fair few people know, the NRL sort of went into a bit of a shutdown for a while there. Well, not a shutdown, but 90% of our business were basically put on forced leave. So for the last 5 weeks or so, I've been on leave. So I actually tuned out quite a bit. Started doing a few things on the side, started a graphic design course as well. So probably the first time since I started at the NRL that I've actually tuned out. Like even in the past when I've been on annual leave and gone on holidays, I'm still sort of keeping my eye on it. But I tuned out for 5 weeks and it's done me the world of good, to be honest.
And I guess now that, the plays, well, for us, we've got, some light at the end of the tunnel, a return date, May 28th. Did you guys in the social media department, do you guys have a return date, back to the office anytime soon as restrictions start to ease?
I'm not sure about the office as such. I started back last week. But to be honest, the majority of our team are still off, and the business is still working out, budgets and what they have room for in terms of staff numbers and departments. So there's still a fair bit happening, a fair bit to work out in terms of staffing. But yeah, at the moment I'm 3 days a week, and most of the business are actually 3 days a week. We're obviously doing more than 3 days as such, but yeah, that's what it is at the moment. And then hopefully come, the week of round one, hopefully it ramps up a little bit more and we've got at least a few more staff because there's a lot to do and 8 games to cover every weekend. So yeah, it'll be weird for the first few weeks, but see what happens.
Yeah. All right. Beautiful, mate. Well, let's get stuck into it. I guess, off the top of my head, like social media has obviously been, exploded in the last, 10 years, and a number of new social media platforms. Like you feel like there's, a various amounts that you can sort of choose from. But I guess for people out there who kind of want to build a brand or build a page for their business, is it best for these people to go across all platforms or just to sort of pick a few and dominate, a few?
Yeah, it probably depends on the business, to be honest. But I think, starting with a niche and limited number of platforms and expanding from there is probably your best bet. I don't think the reverse necessarily works. So I'd say start with 1 or 2 platforms, where you believe your customers are probably the most active and present, and go from there. So I think, the main platforms are obviously, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok now, Snapchat. But I'd say for a lot of businesses, if you're not present on at least Instagram or Facebook, you're behind the ball. So in saying that, if you're starting out, you're not going to nail it straight away. Expecting to be good at social medias without practice is, like expecting to be good at playing halfback in the NRL. It takes a lot of time and effort and years and to sort of understand each platform and how each platform works and the audiences on both and that sort of thing. So yeah, there's probably not one particular way, but I think just find that platform that you think your audience or your target audience is going to be most active and engaged.
Yeah, 100%. And you definitely hit the nail on the head. I think, there's certain platforms that have sort of certain reach with demographics, age, things like that. But, you did mention, I guess, the big four, which is what I wanted to talk about today. And that was, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, which has just sort of exploded. We won't touch on Snapchat today, but that's obviously massive. But I guess for Facebook, someone who wants to start a Facebook page, what have you found are some of the best strategies, for building a Facebook page?
It's a kid outside running around on a scooter. Oh, geez. Yeah, again, it depends on your audience. How long's a piece of string? But I think generally speaking, video, particularly live video, seems to be prioritized by Facebook. Especially videos that are 3 minutes plus, because they're able to monetize those videos to make money on the platform. I personally think a mix is best. Utilize video, utilize live, utilize photos, embed if you're linking to websites, and even the odd piece of copy, just straight text, can also be beneficial. But I think if you focus on video and imagery, that's a good start. And I think with the imagery, it's probably a little bit different to video, because I think video, you can either have sort of that raw, natural element, or you can have the, high-end production type video. But photos tend to, if you can get a good, like the difference between a good photo and a great photo is quite important, especially for small businesses. And I think you need to sort of be careful, or not be careful, but just be mindful of what sort of photography you're putting up on your Facebook page. What
about Facebook ads? We've probably seen these sort of explode, and a lot of businesses use them really, really well. Is a Facebook ad something that the NRL use, I guess, to increase their brand and their marketing?
Yeah, we use it quite heavily, particularly for ticket sales for major events. That's a huge part of our strategy. And I think initially you got to take the time to build an engaged audience, so that you have something that people want to hear and they're eager to listen. So I think Facebook ads, if you want to reach a wider audience on that platform, you need a budget. Otherwise, you're just not going to reach people these days. I don't know the exact figures these days, but I think it's about less than 1% of the fans that actually like your page actually see your content on average. So you need to promote the content that you want people to see, and create content or ads specifically for selected target audiences. So yeah, it's a huge space, and you do need budget for it. Everyone's budgets are going to differ. Some people might have $100 a day. Some people might have 10 grand a week. Just really depends on your company.
I think one of the biggest things you just said then was like building an engaged audience. And I guess for people who might not understand what that is, there's one thing for fans and followers to, I guess, like a page, but to engage in the actual content. And that actually obviously means like liking, commenting. And something that I've kind of learned over, I guess, the last few years as social media has sort of become a bit more relevant in, building a brand as an athlete, is to actually engage with your followers. And by that, it's liking comments, it's responding to comments. It gives people a back and forth instead of just, them feeling like they're not getting anything out of it. You've got to provide value with them. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. It's a conversation, two-way conversation, whether it's, one-on-one or sort of groups. So as you said, something simple as replying to comments takes, a couple of seconds. And the impact and feeling that a fan or a client or a customer gets from that brand interacting is massive. And it's a lot of people don't quite understand how valuable a simple comment is, or a simple response. So that's definitely one area or strategy. I think also working out how often you want to post and having a bit of a content plan. Some pages like the NRL, we can get away with posting multiple times a day, but a builder, for example, might only get away with posting 3-4 times a week. So it's, again, it depends on your audience. But yeah, having a content plan is extremely important for any platform, to be honest. You know, it doesn't mean you need to know exactly everything you're going to post on each platform every week, but if you've got a shell or a base you can work from, and then add in the ad hoc content in between, then yeah, that's going to be more ways than one. It's going to be a winning formula for you.
Is there something that the NRL uses strictly for Facebook that they use that's different to any other, I guess, social media platform?
A lot of our live streaming, particularly during ISO, you know, I think we're doing about 4 or 5 live streams a week. You know, I've got our Origin Classics, some of our regular normal classics, a lot of that live streaming component. You can go live, obviously, on other platforms, but in terms of showing live games, you know, the archive sort of moments, we utilize that heavily on Facebook. Obviously, a lot of our advertising is quite heavy on Facebook. So yeah, I think, and this is probably for every platform, you know, your video or your copy posted on social media is only, you know, it's like a description of a menu item in a restaurant. You know, it doesn't matter how good the dish is, if the description sucks or it's not enticing enough, no one's going to order it, you know, or no one's going to watch it or engage with it. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I've learned that for sure. Writing, you know, good copy or you know, good heading for a video or photo is extremely important, and also engages people to, I guess, you know, take in the content. We'll move on to the next platform, which is Instagram, which obviously speaks for itself. It's probably just behind Facebook in terms of how big it is. But again, what are, you know, some of the best things that have worked for the NRL on Instagram?
Oh, there's a whole range of things we push out. Obviously, highlights go really well, perform really well, whether that's archive or, you know, present. Archive photos, just normal photography from training, games. You know, when we first started the Instagram platform, or when I first started back in 2015, 16, we sort of saw Instagram as a platform for, or a portfolio of our best imagery. But as time has evolved, you know, video has become probably more important and more valuable to us on that platform. So, you know, utilizing a couple of hashtags here and there probably isn't as much, you know, isn't as relevant to probably the NRL now as it is to maybe a small business. You know, it's quite important probably to use a couple of hashtags when you are a small business, no matter what space you're in. You know, I keep going back to the builder because I'm doing a couple of things on the side for a few mates, but using, you know, hashtags, construction, building, interior design, that sort of thing. Even designers, you know, hashtagging, you know, MBA art, or, you know, sports media design, or things like that. A lot of people who don't necessarily follow your page might come across that page if they're searching that hashtag. So I think hashtags are still quite relevant on that platform. Obviously, tagging other accounts, utilizing Instagram story features. You know, you've got polls, Q&A, stickers, all that sort of thing, voting mechanisms. So there's a whole suite of tools on Instagram, particularly on stories, that you can use as well. I almost see Instagram stories and Instagram as two completely different platforms in terms of strategy. So, and it's probably a platform you don't want to be jamming sales messages down either. You know, the algorithm makes it hard enough to get cut through on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. So, you know, if you're shoving constant ticket messages and sales messages down the throats of your fans and your audience, it's going to get a bit tiresome, and fans will either unlike your page and just tune out. So, and I think that's where guys like, you know, Bloke in a Bar, Dennis Kemp's done a really good job over the last year or two. And a lot of his posts, you know, don't even relate to beer. You know, they're about footy and sport in general, and just having a laugh, taking the piss. And I think that's done his, you know, Bloke in a Bar brand and sales the world of good. You know, he's, from what I've seen, he's selling out in a lot of stockists. Fans are always asking where they can buy. So I think he's probably someone that's a good example of not jamming that sales message down someone's throat.
Yeah, 100%. I think, Denon, who I've spoken a few times about on the show, I plan to get him on the podcast soon. He's created such an amazing brand that I guess people can relate to. He has a lot of fun with it. The game takes, the Mickey out of himself, takes the Mickey out of a lot of the players, has a bit of a laugh. But I guess one of the key takeaways you just mentioned in terms of Instagram, and I was lucky enough to be in on, a little presentation at the start of the year with the NRL Marketing Fund, and you were there as well with a guy from Instagram. I can't remember his name, but one of the things I really learned in that talk was that if you're trying to grow your Instagram, that you need to use all the features on Instagram. You can't just post, you can't just put stories. You need to, post stories, all the things you mentioned, polls, all that sort of stuff, go live, try and maximize all the features. So if you're a brand or, starting out a business and you want to grow on Instagram, you need to use all the features. And I think probably one of the hardest thing for people to sort of come across is putting their face to camera. So if they're, recording themselves on their stories, sometimes for some people it can feel quite uncomfortable, can't it?
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of businesses struggle with that. A lot of NRL players struggle with that. So it's not going to come naturally to a lot of players or fans or people. So you need to practice. You might be a little bit awkward at first. We'll probably give a little shout out to both our mate Ryan Jenkins, who works for Tas Construction. He does a great job for them. He's not awkward. He probably was when he first started, but he's so used to it now, and he's had so much practice that he's just he can get his messages across quite naturally now. So you've got to practice. Nothing doesn't come straight away.
Yeah, definitely. How heavily do the NRL, I guess, put out content or repost content from players? Obviously, the players in the NRL are probably the big thing that draws the fans, and fans are probably more inclined to follow players than potentially just the NRL account. How often do you guys, I guess, repost stuff or try and emphasize, or just pushing more of the players brand?
Yeah, it's a bigger emphasis for us. Player-led content's our 9 times out of 10 our best performing content. On average, it probably gets about 10% more engagement with the content we use with players. So whether that's, just taking or working with the players on different pieces of content, or taking the content that players post and reposting it and giving them the credit, it's a huge part of our strategy. It's what the fans really want to see, and fans that aren't necessarily, fans that follow the NRL don't necessarily follow your personal pages. So if we're resharing an athlete's or a player's piece of content onto our channels that they don't necessarily follow, then that might actually get them a follower in return. So if we can work with players more closely, then I think there's a benefit for both, the NRL and the player.
For someone out there who might be listening today, who are some of your favorite NRL players on Instagram and why?
Oh, geez. On Instagram, there's a whole range of players, to be honest. I like what, are we speaking just Instagram or just all platforms?
Probably we'll leave it to Instagram just for now, because we are talking about Instagram.
Yeah. I do like I think Kalen Ponga, I think he's young. He's that sort of demographic that the fans, I think no matter what he puts out, fans will eat up. He's obviously started a vlog recently, and he's got his, he's very good with his photography as well. So I like what he does. I love what Fox, I know he's probably been a bit of strife lately with it, but I love what Fox does on Instagram. He's got that big personality. He's got a good vibe, everyone around him. And every time I've been with him, he's been willing to help and get involved with it. Probably a few others that, Gutho's probably one. Yourself, Jordan Kahu, Alex Glenn, those sorts of guys. Brian Toho is probably one that fans probably don't follow as much at the moment, because he's only just sort of broken onto the scene in the last 12 months or so. But those sorts of guys all have different elements and post different types of content that fans can really engage with.
Yeah, beautiful. All right. So as we, I guess, wrap up the, Instagram chat, it's like I said, it's more about using, every feature of Instagram. If you want to grow on Instagram, you use all the features, spend time to like comments, reply to comments, build that engaging audience to make the most of, being effective on that platform. But I guess the next one is Twitter. Now, Twitter is something that I really enjoy. I find it a lot more newsy, where if I'm looking for news, straight away, I go to Twitter. I feel like Twitter overseas is probably much bigger than it is here in Australia. Obviously, you hear about NBA Twitter and Adrian Wojnarowski and the fact that he's able to break news, as it happens, very big in England and things like that. But, what type of strategies or what type of things have worked for the NRL on Twitter?
I think you nailed it there. I personally use Twitter for a similar purpose. I get a lot of my news, and to be honest, news 9 times out of 10 will break first on Twitter. Whether you follow the person that's breaking the news, probably not. But there's the retweet, functionality that obviously gets the message out there. And if it's timely news and important news, then 9 times out of 10 you're probably going to see it quite quickly before any other platform. So, yeah, I think NRL. Is sort of a mix. We've got our engaging content, but then it's more of a corporate comms sort of platform. We put a lot of our news out, a lot of our NRL.com stories, our media releases, that sort of thing. A lot of or bulk of our game coverage is done on Twitter. We've got our in-game highlights that we push out during the game, and that sort of thing. So, yeah, Twitter's it's probably a little bit different to the other platforms in terms of how often you post as well. You can post, multiple times a day, and that's the norm. It's a lot more conversational, one-on-one conversations, even group chats, threads. I personally find a lot of inspiration for our content by following designers, video editors, motion graphics people from the US sports, and I'm not just talking the NFL or NBA. I'm talking about in clubland, college. A lot of colleges, there's some absolute weapon content creators, and I've got a big list of guys that I follow there just for inspiration for our own platforms as well, and even horse racing. There's mad punters on there and tipsters that you can get good tips from. So. I use it for a whole range. There's just little communities on there that, there's obviously the rugby league community that's massive as well. So, yeah, it's a different beast to any other platform. And it's probably one of my favorite platforms, to be honest.
Yeah, beautiful. Look, I find it very newsy as well. If I'm, want to find information about coronavirus, for example, I'm going onto Twitter to find out stats and things like that. Before and after a game, around, information, news around how a player's played, how the game's pulled up, if there's potential any breaking news on injuries, signing news. I feel like all that stuff comes out on Twitter. A lot of the journos, Australian journalists are all on Twitter, and they like to, do that big breaking sign, like to be first in, first dressed. But yeah, like I said, Twitter is definitely different from the other platforms we've spoken about previously. To go back to your analogy about, I guess, the builder or someone who's wanting to build a brand, Twitter potentially might not be for them, would it?
I wouldn't say, well, particularly in Australia, I don't think so. If I'm a small business, I'd be looking at, Facebook and Instagram probably as your 2 main platforms to start. I think Twitter, it serves a purpose for businesses, but I think for small businesses and businesses that are just launching, I'd probably steer clear of it, and I'd utilize it more as a personal platform to get your news, stay up to date with pop culture and sport and music or whatever interested in. So, I don't think I've really one mate or close mate that is on Twitter. It's a different beast. I think I first started or joined the platform in 2009 when I started at the Sharks. And if you're coming in new, it's going to be weird and you won't understand it first off the bat. So again, yeah, it'll take time to sort of understand and consume and practice and get used to how it all works. But I find it quite rewarding, and I find it quite important part of my day just to stay up to date. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, we'll get on to the last platform that we're going to talk about today, and that's TikTok, which has just absolutely exploded. And I kind of want to tell a little bit of a story. Actually, I remember hearing about TikTok maybe towards the end of last year, and I knew it previously was Musical.ly, and now it was rebranded or whatever and changed into TikTok. And I heard that it was quite a younger I guess demographic of people that were using it. And I thought to myself, I'll jump on and give it a go. And all the news around it was just people singing and dancing, which obviously, I can't do. But, I jumped on and I quickly found out that it wasn't just singing and dancing. It was actually a lot of cool other stuff. I found myself, you could sit on TikTok for like 10, 15 minutes just looking at some really, really cool stuff. And then I started putting out some videos, just some stuff that I had in my phone already. And some of the boys at training would go, "Oh, mate, he's on TikTok, blah, blah, blah," try and give me a bit of stick. But I didn't care at all. And then I said to them, boys, I guarantee it, 3 to 6 months time, you will all have TikTok. And they were just like, yeah, whatever. And Bronson Cherry was a massive one. He's like, nah, I'm not getting it. And then all of a sudden, he's on TikTok and he's dancing. So, mate, TikTok has blown away, and it is something that the NRL is on. How have you found it, I guess, come on in the last few months?
Yeah, it's been a learning curve for us. Like everyone, it's a completely new and weird and wonderful platform. We sort of launched at the very end of last year, but really sort of took off probably mid-January, sort of when everyone was back from holidays and that sort of thing. I don't think there's, we're still learning. We don't know the right or wrong way. We have our ideas and content that we push out, which is a mix of, highlight, sort of twerky highlights and player challenges and trends and reworking content that we might have pushed out in the past, but just to try and understand how the platform works. I still don't understand it completely, and I don't think a lot of people do. Yep. The algorithm's quite interesting, but there's a lot of trends and challenges, as you said, and it's not just dancing and singing. And you can find yourself deep in the vortex of just scrolling on TikTok, finding crazy content. So, and I think you don't have to necessarily be following. Like I don't follow that many people on TikTok because there's a For You page, and you might not understand if you're not on the platform, but you'll serve content that the platform thinks that you'll engage with and like. So the more there's a song at the moment called Rockstar, and I think that a few of the footy players have danced to it. Kalen Ponga, Cody, Nikorima, Joey Manu, those sorts of guys. And now I'm finding myself seeing a lot of TikToks with that trend or that song or challenge. So we've had a bit of fun with it. A lot of our TikTok content you won't find on any of our other platforms unless we're sort of pushing the fact that promoting the fact that we're on TikTok.
Definitely.
So it's quite a fun platform, and we're getting used to how it works, and we want to work with players a little bit more closely as well once this isolation sort of is over. And I think ISO's probably blown it up even more. There's a lot of people that probably wouldn't have hopped on TikTok that have been stuck inside households, including mums and dads that are now on TikTok. So
have you found that the demographic is quite younger on TikTok?
Yeah, I think that the main demographic that they sort of are looking at is the 13 to 24-year-olds. But as I said, over the last few weeks, I'm starting to see, mums and dads in their 30s, 40s even, or families on TikTok. So it's going to be interesting to see if that keeps up post-ISO or whether it's sort of just a fad at the moment for during coronavirus. But, I think creators are the key to TikTok's heartbeat. Key successful campaigns are sort of launched by creators, the guys that have got millions of followers. So someone will release a dance or a song or a trend or a challenge, and from there it just snowballs out of control. So it's interesting.
I guess you touch on a few times the algorithm and how it works across, different platforms. And I myself, when I post, I'm not someone like, I don't know any of the algorithms on any of the platforms. More so for me, it's just about creating content that I think's, going to engage with people, that I think people can find value in. Also, that's fun and creative for myself. But do you guys at the NRL, do you read into the algorithm much across the different platforms and try and post content to work with the algorithm?
Yeah, definitely. Each platform's different. So as I said, Facebook, there's less than 1% of the fans that actually like the page, see the content. So you've got to be really mindful of what you post. And again, it's back to that, try and steer clear of that sales pitch on platforms wherever possible. And just be authentic, no matter what platform you're on, be authentic. And just so the user enjoys that, the experience on that particular platform.
Yeah, lovely. Well, I guess the last sort of bit I wanted to talk about was more around, like, you mentioned before about personally getting some, inspiration from some guys across in America and some college teams and things like that. But for me, I think American sports, they do things so well over there. Obviously, their media empire is, massive. Their sports, industry is huge. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. What type of, I guess, thing does the NRL, do they get, I guess, inspiration as well from what works over in American sports?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I do, and I think the business as a whole does. It comes down to, firstly, rights agreements. We've got different rights agreements with our broadcasters. There's quite a lot of things we aren't able to do that, American sports can do. And same with fans. A lot of our fans, fans within the NRL can't post, highlight content or put their own spin on it without it being taken down, which is more of an automatic type system within the rights manager within Facebook and Instagram. So, it's a different one. And I suppose resource-wise and money-wise, they're, a lot better off. So they have the resources to be able to put into things, like, what did you mention?
Like the content, that American sports create, like, do you guys get inspiration from it? The type of content that they produce quite often, because I feel like their level is just, extreme, awesome stuff.
Yeah, their level. Sorry, NFL Films was what I was trying to refer to. Which you sort of mentioned, where they, create and document for a lot of sporting reasons and stories. So the NRL, I think, I know we would love to do it. I think it comes down to rights, what we can and can't push out. Access, I think access is probably a lot better in America. Some clubs here get it a lot better than others. I think the Sharks are quite good in terms of access. The Panthers are really, really good. They've got their footy staff's quite across, how it benefits the whole team and the club. I think Hayden Knowles is their trainer, or their main trainer, and he really understands how it all works. So their access is amazing, and they do a really, really good job of, especially like their pre-season camp that they did. They released a series, and it was really, really well executed. And they don't have a huge amount of resources, and what they pushed out was really interesting. So it comes down to resource, money, and rights agreements. But yes, so to answer your question, we do take inspiration from, particularly the video element, take inspiration from America.
Yeah, I guess, and one of the things you touched on there was the rights agreement, which obviously are put in place by our broadcast partners, obviously Nine and Fox, who pay, an extreme amount of money to broadcast the game. And one thing I would love to see is, I know that you mentioned a lot of pages get the stuff taken down because of the copyright and things like that. In America, obviously, probably the largest page that everyone knows is House of Highlights. And if there's something going on in the NBA, there's a highlight, you can see it on House of Highlights pretty much straight away. But their, I guess, rights agreements, or, copyright or whatever you want to call it is a lot more relaxed over here. They've got different arrangements in place. Do you think that the NRL and our broadcast partners potentially, could move into something like that?
They should.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily agree with the approach, of the NRL and the stance they have on fan content. I think fans, if they're promoting and producing and creating content that's going to promote your game for free, then I think it's a win-win for both parties. But there's obviously a lot of money at play, and I just think we're a little bit behind in understanding how that process works and the benefits that it can have on the broadcaster, the fan, and the business, the NRL. So, I think we should be doing a lot more in that space, and fans should have a lot more freedom with what they do. But, I'm not the one that makes the $1 billion agreements and decisions, and we've got to do what we've got to do. So, it's tough, and the NBA have done it in particular really well, because I think the NFL tried to take a similar approach to what we did, and they just copped a huge amount of backlash, whereas the NBA is pretty much open slather. Any fan, any platform, like House of Highlights, can post whatever they want. So I think we can learn a lot in that space from America or Europe and those big organizations.
Definitely. And I think one thing that, again, touching on American sports, I'm a massive American sports fan, as a lot of people would know through listening to the podcast. But the things that they do really well, like they mic up players like every single week. And I know there's been a little bit of talk around the Australian media about coaches, being open to this, moving forward to sort of bring more value to our audiences because of what's been happening, in the current climate. But for me, I feel like, as you mentioned, some of the clubs are probably still a bit hesitant towards giving this access, where, I feel like our club does a pretty good job. John Morris is quite a little bit younger coach, probably the next generation of coaches who understand that, opening the doors or, giving more access is going to grow things like, tickets, membership, merchandise. Like these are all things that, probably come through the social media and media marketing. So I think this is something that we definitely need to be open to. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. It's probably a tough one. Every club's different, as you said. Some clubs have the old school sort of footy managers and coaches, and some clubs have the younger brigade. So it's an education process. With both players, some players don't like that sort of thing. Some trainers don't like that sort of thing. Some coaches don't like that sort of thing. So I think where a club can come together and understand the value it brings to the brand and organization as a whole, then they'll hopefully come around to see the benefits. And it won't happen overnight. And you've got to have trust in the people that are pushing out that content as well. Build relationships with players. If I was to walk into a brand new club right now and start pushing out social content, it's not going to be the same as what it would be in 3 or 4 years. You got to build those relationships with players, build that trust.
Yep.
So they know that you're not going to burn them, essentially. Yeah. So, we definitely should keep testing and trying out stuff. And, last year, at the start of this year, I did a little mic'd up piece with Wade Graham and Addo Carr at All Stars, at training. And that was a good piece and performed well. So I'd love to do a lot more than what we are. But we're a little bit limited in terms of resource and access with some clubs, and even broadcasters prefer to do that sort of stuff themselves. So we aren't necessarily allowed to do it. So again, it comes down to those relationships and agreements that are in place.
Yeah, definitely. I saw that piece actually with the Fox and Wado, and it was magnificent. I thought it was awesome. Hearing these players mic'd up at training, the stuff they talk about, the banter, the fun, the seriousness, what they're actually like on the training field. Because, if we're being honest, all fans see of players is maybe a little bit of a highlights video with some music, some photos, and then probably what they see on the news about players at training. And then obviously in the games, things like that. But there's so much more to a player than just that 80 minutes of rugby league. Obviously, as I mentioned, the training. So I feel like this type of stuff if it was to keep going and get some momentum, our broadcast partners and would be open to it, to, you know, letting the NRL explore that, you know, avenue, it would only grow the game, wouldn't it?
100%, and that's why that player-led content is so important, you know. And what makes mastering social media so difficult is, you know, it takes different skills to be good at TikTok, takes different skills to be good at Facebook, takes different skills to be good at Twitter, and we need to start experimenting and playing around in that space a lot more. And yeah, there's so much room for different types of executions, and I know a lot of players want to be involved in it as well. There's just obviously a handbrake on a few different areas, which can hurt. So, yeah.
Yeah, sweet, mate. All right. Well, yeah, I guess if you could wrap up, you know, for the people who have been listening, you know, I guess the key takeaways from today about building a brand or building a page for potentially, you know, their business or their own personal brand. What type of things do you think they should take away from today's podcast?
I think producing content that your audience is going to engage with and like, whether, you know, they're being educated, informed, purely for entertainment, you know, decide why people should follow you first and foremost. Create content in support of that why, you know, consistently post that content. Don't post content that doesn't support your why, you know, it doesn't resonate with your fans. Post content that resonates with your fans, and unless what doesn't. Social media is fun, you know, and don't be scared to have some fun, you know. It's you know, it doesn't have to be serious the whole time. There's obviously, you know, serious elements to different businesses, but overall, fans want to be engaged. They want to enjoy content. You know, they don't need to be sold. They don't need to be spoken to like their mother or boss. So have fun with it. You know, don't be too uptight about it, especially if you're a small business that, you know, you're the boss of. You know, we've obviously, as the NRL, we've got to look after partners and sponsors and the executives and that sort of thing. So we need to be mindful of our voice and what we do push out. You know, whereas small businesses and people that run their own business can pretty much do what they want, and within reason. In terms of timings, I don't think we touched on it, but a good piece of content is going to perform no matter what, I feel.
Yep.
Whether it's in the morning, whether it's in the day, nighttime. I think obviously the night times your real peak period where a lot of users are on. So play around with that commute time and relaxation time. So the early morning when people are on their way to work, sort of like lunchtime, and then sort of late arvo night when people are home cruising.
Beautiful, mate. Well, that's it. We'll wrap it up there. But thank you so much for coming on today, Reece. I really do appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing some of the content that the NRL creates. I've been lucky enough to spend quite a lot of time with Reece over the last few years, and get that relationship about social media. So, mate, I do really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on.
No worries, mate. Thanks for having me.
Make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Take care, guys. You.